All right. Welcome everybody to my Sunday stock watch. So, for this week, I'm going to go over the economic calendar, but if you don't already know, hopefully you know this. If you don't know this, you are living under a rock, but the government has now been shut down for the past 4 days and it looks like it's going to continue into next week. And for what that means for economic data is that it will not be reported since there are no workers to report it because the government is shut down. So last week, we were still waiting on non farm payrolls to come out, and they're not going to come out until the government is open once again. So I'm going to go over the economic calendar. We might not see it come out, but yeah. So for Monday, we have a no news Monday, which is pretty nice. Again, doesn't really matter until the government is up and running again. For Tuesday, we have a couple Fed speakers that maybe may not speak. I'm Sounds like they probably won't be speaking. But yeah, for Tuesday, all we got are some Fed speakers, and then for Wednesday, we do have FOMC minutes. And then we have like a couple other events going on throughout the day that aren't super important once again. And then some Fed speakers, and then for Thursday, we have, I guess, Jerome Powell speaking 1 hour before market open, which I guess he might not speak. And then we have a couple other things going on, like jobless claims. We have Fed speakers, and yep. And then for Friday, we do have consumer sentiment and the 5 year inflation expectation. So that'll be pretty important, and we'll see, how that goes. So let's get into exactly what I'm looking for this up and coming week. So if we take a look at Robinhood Legend, we got QQQ's up $1, Spies up $1.30 from close on Friday. We got a lot of names up, a nice amount for right now. I'm sure Coin and MSTR are probably going to rally as long as Bitcoin continues. I got a lot to talk about that, so we will get right into it. So yeah, it looks like everything is mostly kind of unchanged from Friday close, so this will be pretty easy. So yeah, we got Qs and SPY up about $1, so that's nice. But let's go into the 1 hour time frame, and I'm going to turn off my volume profile real quick. Okay, so now that we're on the 1 hour time frame, obviously we know up here our all-time high area, so 608. 01 is our all-time high. So the range I'm expecting, general range for QQQ this week, is going to be that 600 to that 608 area, since we're currently trading around 604. So ideally what I would like to see is a little bit of a pullback going into tomorrow. Again, it's a no news Monday, no news week, the government shut down, I guess. So I'm not sure if we will exactly see that, but what I'm talking about is I would ideally love to see a pullback into this 601, and then we get a bounce from there. That would be really nice as well. Or we will just end up breaking below 602 and trading below there. That could happen as well. Or we break above this 605 and we just continue into that all-time high area. So there's a couple scenarios that can go on. Again, I feel really blind going into this week knowing that the government's shut down and now we don't have any economic data to be released. So, what do we kind of do going into this? Feeling a little bit like a blind mouse, but happens. But that's the general range that I'm looking for into this next week. If we do, for some reason, end up being a bit more bearish, let's say we do break below the 600 area, I would definitely be expecting to trade back into 595, even lower than there. So again, that's the general range. And then above all-time highs, really no say. Maybe we reject at 610. Seems like a nice whole number. But again, we'll see. SPY, same sort of thing. So our all-time high area was up at this 672.69 range, and I would expect us to trade within this larger range, so maybe from 672 down to this 667 area, 67. Anyways, so that's a general range that I'm looking for on SPY going into this next week. What I ideally want to see going into tomorrow is maybe back down to 669 or 670, and then we get a bounce from there, and we could trade back up towards that all-time high range. SPY's looking a bit tighter than QQQ. Doesn't have didn't get as wide of a range on like Friday, I would say, or it did, but it feels a little bit tighter. It feels like we don't have as much room on SPY. We got these rejects, and then we could get these bounces at these lower areas, lower levels. So just be cautious and be careful going into that. But yeah, if we do end up being bearish, we break below the 667 area, I would definitely expect to see down into 664, even to 662, just as a general range going into this next week. Now, for my favorite stocks that I'm watching, or I'll get to that in a second. Let's go over Tesla. So Tesla's currently trading at 435. So we've gotten a bit of a bounce. I know we did have quite a lot of downside after knocking out that almost 480 range. That's just kind of where we started to fall. So I do expect and I do want to see Tesla give us a little bit of a rally again this week. So since we're trading at this 435 area, that's a pretty key level of support. If we continue to hold that up, then I would ideally love to see us trade back into that 445, 440 area going into tomorrow. So I do want to see us maybe come back down a little bit into 434, 433, get a bounce from there, and then continue higher into that 440 area. But general range for Tesla this week is, as long as, the market kind of continues, we could definitely see some uptrend with Tesla. But again, things are really uncertain right now with no economic data coming out. Again, feel very blind. And then the next name I'll go over is Nvidia. So Nvidia obviously hit 190 last week. And then we started to see a pullback from there. Not a pullback, a little bit of a retracement back into 185. So the general range I'm looking at on Nvidia is 183 to that 190 area. So if we do end up breaking below 185, definitely expect to see down to 183 and see a bounce from there. And then once we do get that bounce, I would expect to see back into 185 and then potentially reach 190 again. And if we do continue to hold up this 185 area, and let's take a look. So yeah, we're sitting at 188.59. I most definitely will expect us to continue up to 190 and potentially surpass those highs. Now, for my favorite section is going to be Bitcoin, crypto names, Circle MSTR coin. So Bitcoin over the weekend hit all-time highs. I was watching it, maybe you weren't, but I'm very into crypto scene right now. So I was watching Bitcoin trade up and reach all-time highs. What I would love to see is a small slight pullback into 121 and then just, soar and continue higher. Um, that's really what I want to see. So I want to see us pull back into this little range over here and then just get that massive and nice push up back above 125 range, ideally. And what that means for crypto names is I want to see Coinbase trade back into this 370, even a little bit lower to 365, get a bounce from there. I think currently we're up $5, so we're at 386. So we're going to be reaching 400s pretty soon as long as Bitcoin can keep that up. So yeah, we traded back. If we can trade back into this 370, which now seems a little bit like we aren't going to, but I would love to see that and then get a bounce from that area. Or if we could just, hold above 382, 385 range. If we go into like the daily chart, hold above any of those areas, or retrace back into 381 and get a bounce from there. That would be extremely ideal. And then MSTR is the same sort of story, although MSTR is currently trading at 357.60. So if we can hold up 360 on MSTR, I definitely think this thing could rip as long as we see the proper timing on Bitcoin. But ideally, what I would love to see is for us to trade back into that 350 tomorrow, or even 348 range, and get a nice bounce from that area, and then continue higher into that 70, 375 range. That would be very ideal. Circle. So Circle has been trading, around the same sort of areas for quite a bit. We've created this big range, but I would love to see Circle make a run for it. So ideally, let's take a look. Circle's currently sitting at 149.50. So if we could see back into 145, get a bounce from there and break above and hold above 155, that would be wonderful and magical. That would be awesome because then we could easily see circle back into that 160 area. We did make a really nice run for it on Friday, but unfortunately, Bitcoin ended up giving us a little bit of a retracement, a pullback on Friday. Oops, I meant to go into the 1 hour. On Friday after that. So wherever this area was, yeah, we kind of tried to reach all-time highs. We kind of came back down a little bit, and that's when MSTR coin and Circle kind of gave up all of their juice and came right back down as well. So yeah, and then we also have Netflix, which I'm taking a look at. So Netflix is more of a, a lot of, I guess, more fundamental analysis. We got a lot of people canceling their Netflix subscriptions, all that good stuff going on. Bad stuff for Netflix, good stuff for us volatile traders. But yeah, if we could see below this 150 area, I really think we could obviously head back down to that 135 and then potentially even lower back into the 1,110 area is ideally what I want to see on Netflix. So I think Netflix could continue with downside, but you know, that's really fundamentally based and stocks don't always run off of that. So again, we'll see. They'll definitely be taking a hit from this, but it might not be sudden. It might not be tomorrow. So just something I'm keeping my eye on to watch for, and then we'll see going forward. But those are mainly all the names that I'm watching going into this next week. Again, with the government shutdown, and if it then is not shut down, really kind of blind on that area. If we get our non-farm payrolls coming out randomly, you know, just something to be very cautious of. Be cautious. I wouldn't be swing trading right now, especially any like short-term options contracts. I would just be a little bit more hands off, much more careful. And yeah, but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my Sunday stock watch. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe so you can see more of my videos and educational content. But have an amazing rest of your Sunday, and I will see you guys all next week.